So Edward program made by two major philosophers. One was Karl Marx और दूसरा कौन था? Edward Bernstein. Okay. Now if you look at Karl Marx, he maintained the classical philosophy of Karl Marx, right? And he was called as an orthodox follower of his guru, Marx. Now, if you look at Bernstein, he revised the idea of Karl Marx, right? He rejected the Karl Marx idea of class struggle. He said कि गुरुजी जो कह रहे हैं वो हो नहीं रहा है. For example, he was saying that there will be dictatorship of the proletariat, there will be revolution, but that was not realized. So he revised. He told, yes, socialism is okay, but we need to change the means, right? And what would be the means? Through the parliamentary road to parliamentary democracy. So he was called revisionist. Because he did revision in Karl Marx theory. Right? इतना हम लोगों ने किया था. Now I will move to later on. If you look at this is the 1891, right? And the last decade of 19th century, and and if you see, there was other Marxists. For example, if you look at Russia was a very fertile ground for revolution, right? There were several parties. Bolshevik, there was a Bolshevik. I think Bolshevik, Lenin. Bolshevik revolution का नाम सुना है, right? Lenin was heading Bolshevik revolution, right? And there was another party also. Have you heard about Menshevik? There was a Menshevik, there was a Bolshevik, right? And here, if you look at Karl Marx as revisionist, बोला ये तो गुरुजी से हट के चला गया. गुरुजी ने कहा कि वायलेंस करके राज्य ये लेना है और ये तो बोल रहे हैं कि पार्लियामेंट्री रोड टू डेमोक्रेसी करना है. He criticized Edward Bernstein. Now he also criticized Lenin because what Lenin did, Lenin prohibited other organizations, right? And he tried to, occupy the state to only one party, that is called Bolshevik. His philosophy of एक ही दूसरा पार्टी नहीं होगा, right? And he called that to be the vanguard of Marx. Vanguard of यही जाएगा मार्क्सिज्म को सही तरीके से. कौन? एक ही पार्टी, दूसरे पार्टी को खत्म करो. But when you try to eliminate other party, you use force, isn't it? You use coercion. Right? What Lenin did, it prohibited Bolshevik. Right? Karl Marx criticized Lenin that whatever socialism you are producing, it is not socialism. It is a distortion of Marxism. You are using violence, right? And discriminatory violence. Because the Menshevik था वो भी against था जार के. जो मेंशेविक बोल्शेविक है ना कि मान लो कि मूवमेंट होता है. अभी farm law, there was a farm law passed by the Indian government. There is no only one farmers organization. There were several farmers organizations who were opposing the government. Now what will, अगर मान लो, consider if a largest farmer organization try to suppress the other organization, that you either merge or don't exist. What will happen? It will start using coercion. Democracy will decline, actually crushed. Democracy will be crushed in that sense. So, Karl Marx criticized Bolshevik for making, distorting Marxism and creating a socialism we call barrack socialism. Barrack क्या होता है? Have you heard about barrack? कभी एनसीसी में किया है? किया है? ओके, barrack क्या होता है? नहीं, okay, anyone? If you know the word barrack, जो टेंट होता है ना, जब हम या कैंप में जाते हैं, कभी एनसीसी में कैंप गए हो, तो जो टेंट में रहते हैं ना, उसको बैरक बोलते हैं. कहाँ जाओ? अपने बैरक में जाओ. Barrack socialism is controlled socialism. What Karl Marx criticized Lenin, that Lenin has started a barrack socialism, a very controlled socialism. Right? Lenin criticized Karl Marx. Right? And if you look at, with Lenin, there was a Rosa Luxemburg, there was a Leon Trotsky, right? They were supportive Lenin. Later on, when Lenin, realized something bad is happening in Russia, what was that? Crushing of individual liberty on the name of socialism. Lenin realized, no, the proletariat have no culture to rule. They don't know how to govern. And govern is art. Govern is different from government. Right? How to govern is an art. Lenin realized, no, this is something going wrong. Later on, just after 90, the Bolshevik revolution होता है, 3 साल 4 साल के बाद लेनिन मर जाता है. Russian revolution, Bolshevik revolution की बात कर रहा हूँ. That was the Russian revolution, 1917. After 4 years, Lenin died. But look at Lenin, तो बूढ़े हो गए थे. Lenin के जगह पे दूसरे लोग, Stalin. Stalin was very, I may say, Stalin was very staunch supporter of crushing liberty, opposition. Now, Rosa Luxemburg criticizes, Stalin, but Leon Trotsky, supported Stalin, right? And he realized, Leon Trotsky, that crushing opposition is very necessary to bring a true socialism, right? Later on, Leon Trotsky started criticizing Stalin because Stalin started using bureaucracy and state tool already thought, but more to crush individual liberty. What happened? He was a great friend of Stalin. What happened? And Stalin was very brutal to his critique. मरवा देगा. उसके सामने ऐसे जिंदा नहीं रखना है. He is to kill his opposition. Now, when he started criticizing, Leon Trotsky knew that I will be killed with the hand of my own friend, that is Stalin. He left US and went to Mexico. Stalin sent his spy to Mexico to kill Leon Trotsky. And Leon Trotsky was killed by Stalin's spy forces. Right? That kind of terror Stalin had evolved on the name of socialism. Right? So there is a different version of socialism you can see here. Right? Edward Burns की छोड़ दीजिए, यहीं पर जो यहीं पर है बहुत अलग-अलग था. Different version of socialism. इसी जमाने में इटली में एक इंसान लिख रहा था जेल में. Right? It's all about Western society. We are talking about Russia. Russia is a part of Europe. During this time, one person was writing while he was in prison. Think about Gandhi was also in prison that time. Then he was also in prison in India, right? That person was also in prison, but not in India, but not in Russia, but he was in Italy. His name is Gramsci. Right? And Gramsci, ये इतना समझ में आया? Different version, थोड़ा पढ़ लिया था, नहीं पढ़ के आए थे. पढ़ के आओगे, इसलिए मैं पहले दे दिया कि क्लास नोट्स का ही बनाया हुआ है ऑलरेडी. ठीक है, इसीलिए पहले दे दिया कि आप अगर पढ़ के आओगे, मैं बताऊंगा कहानी, right? And it will be clear to you. Now you write in your own language, right? You must be creative. आप पैरामीटर हटा लीजिए और मैं कोई बाउंडेशन नहीं लगाता हूँ. ऐसे लिखना है, वैसे लिखना है, right? Right? If I feel, I'll realize if you're writing good, I'll say, okay, it's okay. If you write, you know, in a very, if you want to write, if you know, if there is a problem, I'll tell you definitely. Fine? Got the idea here? Now, one person was in Italy, name is Gramsci. His name is Gramsci. इसका क्रिटिकल इवोल्यूशन में दे दूंगा एक पेज में, राइट? और क्या रेलेवेंस है जो ना तुमको लगा. Gramsci or Antonio Gramsci was also a member of Socialist Party in Italy. Right? He was also an member of the parliament, right? But he was imprisoned, right? He was imprisoned and he was writing a book in a prison, that is, उनका किताब भी है, a prison notebook. A prison notebook, right? He was influenced by a great philosopher in Italy. His name was Benedetto Croce. Benedetto Croce. What Benedetto Croce did, he explained history on the basis of culture, right? Or cultural history. He interpreted history from the cultural point of view. Fine? Who? Croce. Gramsci was very influenced by his interpretation. And what he did, he inquired Karl Marx's theory of historical materialism. Why? Gramsci thought, it was 1925. Gramsci thought that the entire Marx idea was for industrialized society. Right? It was an industrial society who was a purely capitalist, where majority was in working class. But revolution did not take place in the purely industrialized West. Where does it take place? It took place in the eastern part of the Europe, which is purely agrarian, right? And very partly it is industrial. Russia was not so industrial in that time. 1970, industry was very limited in Russia, right? And it was primarily agricultural society. Now, he raised the question that why Marx's idea did not realize in the industrialized West democratic or capitalist society. Why it happened in far distant called Russia? That was his basic question. मार्क्स ने क्या कहा कि ये जो रिवॉल्यूशन होगा कहां पे होगा? इंडस्ट्रियलाइज्ड सोसाइटी में होगा. क्यों होगा? यहां पे बहुत सारा एक्सप्लॉयटेशन है, right? Who are the majority? Working class are in the majority, right? And they know that how they are being exploited. They are conscious about vulnerability and they will do the revolution. But that did not happen. It happened in the far distant Eastern Europe, that was Russia, and it was a very partly industrial society, part largely it was a agrarian society. Now, Is it why revolution did not take place in the Western capitalist society, like UK, France, Germany, right? And he answered that question. He answered that question, right? He inquired the Marxism. Basically, he took the lens of culture. He took the lens of culture to interpret. And that's why his Marxism is called cultural Marxism. This was the time when there was orthodox Marxism. Lenin made it very orthodox. Let me tell you here. Let me go back a little bit. When I was talking about Vanguard Party, now it was Lenin who made the Marxism more orthodox, right? For example, he was the person who said state is an operation tools, right, of operation in the hand of the bourgeoisie to operate the working class. Smash the state. That was his idea, right? He did not allow other party to evolve, and this is only one party that will flourish. That is Vanguard of Marxism. इसी में चाइना के बारे में पूछा था. Now you can relate. There's only one party that exists in China or anywhere in the world who followed Lenin, right? There's only one party. There's no another party. Because they believe that only this party can do one thing. What party was about deviation hoga? Only one party will rule the entire state. And little bit Vanguard. Vanguard matlab driver, engine of the entire nation. Driver of the change. Right? And Lenin version of Marxism is called Leninism Marxism. Leninism Marxism. Who made Marxism very, more orthodox and did not allow opponent to criticize, right? And later on, if you see the Leon Trotsky, Leon Trotsky, Stalin is the pura practical. Even you can't criticize Stalin. Marx का तो बहुत बड़ा criticism आप कर ही नहीं सकते. Stalin का भी criticism नहीं कर सकते, right? Because Stalin, thought that he was a true follower of Karl Marx, right? But in the process, he was distorting the entire Marxism. What idea? In this age, one person in Italy was writing on Marxism through a different point of view, that through the lens of culture, right? And that's why Gramsci's version of Marxism is called cultural Marxism. Right? He opened the debate on base and superstructure, right? Marxism. So his Marxism is also called open Marxism. Right? Basically, he inquired, he interrogated Marxism. How did he interrogate? We'll tell you a little later. But it's not clear yet. Yes, anything that you want to ask? Arjun, anonymous, want to write others? Or Shimran, Raghav, Shobit, don't become anonymous. Huh? Reveal yourself. Don't be alienated. Clear? Okay. If it is clear, let me tell you how he inquired or how he interpreted the Marxism. Right? Now, if he integrated historical materialism. Historical materialism. Or if you look at historical materialism, what Marx said, Marx interpreted entire history on the basis of economic mode of production. जैसे वैसे वैसे सोसाइटी बदल गई, right? Mode of production, everything is dependent on mode of production, right? So he has priority to base. He had given priority to base. Base and superstructure, right? I said superstructure, and you know what he said? The superstructure is a reflection of the base. Superstructure is a reflection of the base. Superstructure is nothing. It is an image copy of the base. जैसे जैसे base बदलेगा, वैसे उसका superstructure भी बदलेगा, right? So basically, base determines the superstructure, right? And what is base? It is the economic structure of the society, and that's why Marx called as an economic determinist. Getting point? Now, what he did? Grams. Now, again, base is superstructure. He said, okay, base is important. Base is very important, but it's not that superstructure is not important. मार्क्स ने क्या कहा कि अगर ये फिनोमेना है तो ये एक ही फिनोमेना है. रिमेंबर, ये फिनोमेना का मतलब लिख लिया था ना. ये क्या कहता है कि देखो बेस है भाई साहब, बेस के पास में ही एक ऐसा कैटेगरी स्ट्रक्चर. So he divided superstructure into part, right? So he said base is very important to understand the history, but it is also very important to understand the superstructure. It's very important to superstructure. There's a very nearby superstructure. There's a civil society. Civil society. He said civil society like education, temple, right? Education, temple, school, or church. Temple के बाद में church लेते हैं, right? Then चाय का दुकान, कोई भी कुछ भी हो सकता है. This is a part where people come and interact and pursue each other. Now, this civil society play a very important role. In perpetuating the another structure of the society. So he divided the entire superstructure in two parts: political society and civil society. What is political society? Political society is an argument of coercion, like police, like prison, like military. So, political society involves coercive institution, police, military, judiciary, etc. Now, another is called civil society, like school, education, university, church, temple, family. And what he said, this important role, press, yeah. This play a very important role. What role does it play? Trump said it creates consent. Right? It tells you, advertisement tells you what is the good for why capitalism is good. Advertisement में क्या कहता है? लड़का भी गोरा हो जाता है. Have you seen men's cream? So when you apply cream, you become, fair, and that attracts you. That attracts you. Does it attract or not? Right? For example, if you see some Baba, some Pope, they'll say, no, it's good. State is good. Right? and who believes, working class believes on this, they play a very important role. So this civil society manufactured consent. Consent, not state is a good. This is a good. Right? So what a state does, the state actually employs civil society first. State employs civil society first in order to rule. Right? And whenever civil society fails, the state uses coercion. Right? But in Western society, which is industrial society, which rules through consent, civil society, press, media, education, church, family, public sphere, right? It plays. So why this capitalism continue? It continue not due to the base, but the structure itself. Right? So until we don't use, we don't change this superstructure also, we can't change society. ऐसा नहीं कि mode of production देने से superstructure बदल जाएगा, नहीं. Right? Social change कब होगा? जब आप यहाँ पर भी बदलाव लाएंगे और यहाँ पर भी बदलाव लाएंगे. Now you can see here that we made three blocks, three points: political society, civil society, and mode of production base. And all three we call historical block. Historical block. Right? So in order to change the society, we need to change in the historical block. Marx ने क्या कहा था? Mode of production बदलो, सब कुछ बदल जाएगा. What Marx said? A mode of production changes social change in the society. Social change. He said no. Why this is not happening? Because civil society is very strong Western democracy. Even democracy is a one idea which produces consent. Right? So the ruling class rules through the civil society. Right? What civil society does? It manufactures consent. Right? And it produces hegemony. Right? It produces hegemony. ठीक है, तो क्या हम इसको बदल नहीं सकते? उसने बोला बदल सकते. Right? Can't we change this historical block? He said yes, we can do it. We can do it through two policies. One, we have one policy to इसको रिप्लेस करना है. ये टाई बेल्ट पहन के जो लोग जाते हैं और कहते हैं ये पढ़ा लिखा है, और जो कुर्ता पहन के जाता है वो मूर्ख है, ये डिस्टिंक्शन हटाना पड़ेगा. You know now, in Western society, all educated class are putting tie, and those who are keeping only shirt, there's a difference. We do difference culturally. कोई अच्छा पहन के आया, टाई लगा के आया, oh, right? You'll be really highly educated people, and whatever he will say, we should follow, or that would be correct. So we have to change this civil society altogether. We have to change the culture. Right? At the same time, we have to also strike political society, and we have to also change this. It means we have to change the entire historical block in order to make the social change. Good idea. So he reinterpreted the Marxism, right? And his idea of Marxism was well accepted. Right? His idea of Marxism, that is cultural Marxism, is well accepted. Right? Yeah. Question for instrument. So is this the civil society operates freely or is it dominated by state? Bijendra Jha has asked one question. So is it state that controls civil society, or is it civil society that shapes the state? Does civil society operate freely or is it dominated by state? civil society is an autonomous arena, right? It is a free from the state yet very integral to the state. It is a free from state but yet very integral to the state, right? So it is not dominated by state, not controlled by the state, right? So for example, कभी भी झगड़ा होता है तो स्टेट क्या करता है? मान लीजिए कॉम्युनल वायलेंस होता है या कुछ होता है, स्टेट क्या करता है? सारे बाबाओं को एक साथ कर देता है, पहले आप लोग सुलझा लीजिए, राइट? और जब फार्म लॉ आया था, फार्म प्रोटेस्ट हुआ था, रिवॉल्यूशन शुरू हुआ था, तो स्टेट ने क्या किया? पहले अपने ग्रुप को भेजा, राइट? मीडिया में प्रचार करना शुरू किया इधर, राइट? सो दे स्टार्टेड deciding first to crush the, to negotiate and maintain the status quo, right? Fine? Yes, got the idea? हर सिमरन हम लिखवाना है, मुझे समझाने का काम हो गया। कोई सवाल है तो जरूर पूछिए। So civil society generates the concept of such only the current economic structure is good. Yeah, I told you that civil society generates consent. It manufactures consent, basically. It manufactures hegemony. Right? How do the state manufacture hegemony? Right? He said, it's not that यहाँ पर civil society organize नहीं करता है. For example, when you go to a school, when you go to the school, or someone goes to the work. कोई फैक्ट्री में जाता है, अब सारे लोग क्या स्टेट का क्रिटिसाइज करते हैं? क्या नहीं करते? बहुत लोग स्टेट को सपोर्ट करते हैं, राइट? और हमेशा आपको समझाते हैं स्टेट कैसे अच्छा है। Gramsci called organic intellectual. When you go to school, it's not that all teachers contribute in critique of the government. No, they give you some very good thing that the state does, and they convince you that why should we obey the state, right? This kind of intellectual is called organic intellectual, and they are the part of the they are the people who creates or generates consent, right, and manufactures hegemony, right? And they say you that why do we obey the state, right? It produces legitimacy. Why do you obey the state? Because you have voted. मैं भी कहता हूँ क्यों आपको मानना चाहिए? आपने वोट किया है, आप मान लीजिए, राइट? ठीक है, थोड़ा लिख लेते हैं फिर समझेंगे आप लोग। यस, ये तो क्या नाम है, शोभित पूछ रहे हैं, I'm raising Soviet question. Civil society generate the concept of the state only that the current economic structure is good. No, तो economic structure तो oppressive है. How does it maintain? How bourgeoisie and the state both maintains this exploitative system, and there is no revolution? Remember his original question, Gramsci's original question: why revolution did not take place in industrialized society of the West? And he said, the civil society is a region. Yes, it is exploitative. It is a part of the state. Fine. But civil society played a very important role. For example, free press. Right? Democracy. That played a very important role, and that's why revolution did not take place. ठीक है? Yes, Harshimranjit ने पूछा कुछ. So sir, what is the factor that shapes civil society? How they are actually inspired? Is it their influence of state on civil society? Yes, civil society. What are actions in civil society? I talked about there are various actions that civil society take. For example, when you go to temple, right? When you go to temple and meet your priest, right? And it tells you now everything is good, अच्छे रहो, तुम IAS बनो, IPS बनो, कहते कि नहीं कहते? आपको लगता है IAS और IPS बहुत अच्छा चीज है, अगर मैं बनूंगा तो देश का उत्थान हो जाएगा, right? Contributed good in the economy, आशीर्वाद में क्या मिलता है? मिलता है कि नहीं मिलता है? That generates how, consent generated, and you think that IAS, IPS, this, that is very good. But police is a very much exploitative institution. It is a highly potential violent institution. What? Police. Right? Go to police and talk to him. मेरा कुछ खो गया है. फिर बताइए वो कैसे आपको बताते हैं कि आपका खो गया है, क्या हो गया है. Isn't it? So, for example, when you go to meet your neighbor, they also say, oh, उसका बेटा देखो इंजीनियर किया, इंजीनियरिंग के बाद ये किया, उसके बाद आर्मी में चला गया, राइट? उसका बेटा ये किया, उसके बाद बैंकिंग में चला गया, राइट? उसका बेटा ये किया और उसकी बच्ची ये किया, उसने कहाँ चला गया? वो आईपीएस बन गई, यूपीएससी की लेटर में या स्टेट पीसीएस करी. That means you are inspired through the society, right? Somewhere you can say praise play a very role, right? For example, it gives you an entire interview of the topper, right? You read it and realize it, oh, this is the real something that I should pursue, right? And your mind does not go to the exploited class, right? So these all institutions like free place, education, temple, right, all creates or generates consent. Harshimran, now Shobit has asked, sir, these organic intellectuals, ऑर्गेनिक इंटेलेक्चुअल मैंने बताया कि ऑर्गेनिक इंटेलेक्चुअल वो है जो आपको स्टेट की पढ़ाई बताते हैं, राइट? इट मे बी इंजीनियर, इट मे बी अ टीचर, राइट? सो फॉर एग्जांपल व्हेन आई गो टू द वर्क आई मेट सेवरल पर्सन्स. देयर आर few people who criticizes and there are few people who admires, but there are few people who doesn't bother. उसको बोला तो बोला, उसको तो हटाओ, बट जो क्रिटिक करता है वो भी ऑर्गेनिक इंटेलेक्चुअल है, और जो सपोर्ट करता है वो भी ऑर्गेनिक इंटेलेक्चुअल है, because they deliberate, they try to convince either in favor or opposite. That's fine, but they are organic intellectual, right? So Sobit has asked, sir, those organic intellectual can be called as a managing committee or say. No, see what Gramsci wants to say us, that yes, if capitalist has produced organic intellectual, then the Marxist also should produce organic intellectual, right? Otherwise कैसे होगा? For example, if there is a scholar who is supporting Brahmanism, right? And there are different kinds of scholars. You can MLA also you can't say they are illiterate. No, they are very literate. MLA, even court, even you're a teacher, even maybe you're a religious leader, may support Brahmanism. They are the organic intellectual, mind it. But we have to create, as I'm just taking myself as a Gramsci, we have to generate or create organic intellectual in favor of feminism, in favor of Ambedkar right philosophy, right? Right? So Brahmanism is organic intellectual for the one system that's called capitalist or Brahmanical ordered society. Then feminism and the Ambedkar, philosophy that we have to generate. Or until you don't pursue people why feminism is good, why Ambedkarite philosophy is good, they won't pursue. They won't pursue. So here, persuasion is very important rather than economy. Right? पैसा देके आप revolution नहीं करा सकते. right? You have to change the mindset or psychology of the working class, right? You remember one thing that Hegel said, idea is a real. Consciousness is a real, and matter is back. Reflection of the real. What Marx said, idea is false. Right? Idea is a false consciousness. ऐसा कुछ है ही नहीं. Idea is a false consciousness. What is truth? Truth is a matter. Truth is economy. Right? Truth is economy. Your economic condition determines your consciousness. Right? Yesterday or day before yesterday, on Saturday, I was talking to people. He's older than me, 10 years, and he is nurtured in urban area. I'm a village boy, right? Nurtured in village. He was asking about telegram. Didn't know, right? तो उसने बहुत कुछ कहा कि telegram का phone ऐसे वाले था. मैंने कहा movie में देखा. वो लोग मेरे घर पे. movie में था मुझे पता नहीं. He was asking about. He was not talking about superiority or inferiority. Yeah, he was urban based. He had access to telephone or telegram where एक line निकाला था पहले, and each word you have to pay. For each word you have to pay. I don't know why, because my material conditions, right, deprived me to understand what is this kind of telephone. Are you getting it? So he said, Marx said, your material condition, is a real, real thing. Now, what Lenin said about idea, he said, no, see, he rejected the Karl Marx. Idea is not false consciousness. Idea is very important, right? We need, consciousness for the working class. Let me tell you, how Marx was contradictory in himself. उसने क्या कहा? Consciousness क्या बेकार चीज है? Ego को criticize किया. But he said, working class is conscious about their vulnerability. That means working class is very much aware of the idea about that he is vulnerable. When the idea is false, then how working class can be aware about their vulnerable condition? Right? So Lenin said idea is important. We need, intellectual for the working class. Right? We need to generate intellectual for working class. Similarly, Gramsci said intellectual is very important. Right? And any could be intellectual. For Gramsci, any person who speaks deliberately, right, is intellectual. Either in support or, right? What the idea? उसने कहा सब intellectual है यहाँ पर. जो बोलता है ना वो सब intellectual है, सब philosopher है, right? ठीक है? But one line I should say, सब बोलने हर इंसान को बोलने का एक पर्पस होता है. How Gramsci said, right? Theory for someone for some purpose. Theory for someone for some purpose. Someone may speak against, someone may speak in favor of. But they have some purpose. Right? Now, he said working class need to generate or create organic intellectual. Right? For example, if you look at Brahmanism, can you visualize how Brahmanism is working as a dominant ideology in society? क्या ब्राह्मण आके बोलते हैं कि मैं ब्राह्मण सुप्रीम हूँ, मैं ये हूँ, मैं वो हूँ, कहता है क्या? नहीं कहता है. But how they do maintain supremacy? They have maintained from centuries. Fear, no? आपको कोई मारता क्या ब्राह्मण को? नहीं.
Through teachings of Vedas and
yeah, through teachings of Vedas, so many scriptures, giving you, okay, how God is good and God is good.
And they themselves created that class.
Right? And one more thing, आपने देखा कि अभी कृष्णाष्टमी हो रहा है, कभी कुछ हो रहा है, कभी जाके वहां पर यज्ञ हो रहा है, कहीं पे हवन हो रहा है, कहीं पे कथा हो चल रही है. किसका? तो बाबा रामदेव का या किसी का कथा चल रहा है. If you look at, it is very irregular, or I say it is very regular, but very non-violent, right? Very non-violent, very, you can say, open production of consent. Open production of the consent. And this is how Brahmanism is continued. Right? Got the idea? And must differentiate between Brahmin and Brahmanism. Right? A carrier of any person can be carrier of Brahmanism. But it is not that if you find Brahmin, they can be, Brahmanism. They can be carrier of Brahmanism. No, not at all. Fine? बाद में बताऊंगा. चलो. When policies are made to change our civil code, and when policies are made to change the historical block, then do civil society compromise as per the state, or is the state that has to comply with it? थोड़ा लिखवा देता हूँ हर्षितन, उसके बाद समझ में आएगा. I'm not willing to go furthermore. Okay, Harshindran? So Gandhi was influenced by Machiavelli, was that religion, church, so should be separated from. I should not go. I don't want to go further. जितना मैंने बता दिया, right? Is it clear? Then I'll start dictation. Write it first, then we'll move further. कैसे होगा? One more thing, I in your copy time, I found that you have written that Machiavelli separated religion from politics. So we had अभी बहुत कहा है शोभित ने comment में कि Gramsci was influenced by Machiavelli to separate religion from politics. Machiavelli never separated politics from religion. What Machiavelli did, Machiavelli subordinated politics under the authority of the state, politics. Separation and subordination is two different. Our family, I have family, me and my wife. I'm a state and she is a religion. Separation हो गया कि अलग है, मैं अलग हूँ. Right? What does separation means? Separation means my wife is separate and I am separate. No, Machiavelli didn't do that. What Machiavelli did, Machiavelli subordinated religion under the authority of the state. And he said religion is good. He was not critic of religion per se. He was critique of the Christian virtue. Right? The virtue in the virtue of Christianity. We already talked about. Right? So he did not separate religion from politics. Okay? Shobhit, तो लिखिए. अच्छा, लिखने से पहले मुझे बताइए No, right. Gramsci was a great philosopher. Who reinterpreted Marxism. Gramsci was a great philosopher who reinterpreted Marxism. He was influenced by an Italian historian an Italian historian, Benedetto Croce. Benedetto Croce, who interpreted history or who explained history from cultural point of view. Benedetto Croce, who explained history from cultural point of view. Right? Marx also inquired Marxism through the lens of culture. Through the lens of culture. Right. Through the lens of culture. He focused the role of culture. He focused the role of culture in interpretation of Marxism. And interpretation of Marxism. And that is why his version of Marxism is called cultural Marxism. His version of Marxism is called cultural Marxism. Got the idea? While I was, hang on, don't write anything. While I was teaching you Marx, I told you that, his life was divided into two parts. The mature and the young philosopher, a social philosopher. He was talking about freedom. He was talking about human sense. He was talking about creativity. He was talking about emancipation. He was talking about exploitation, right? And the follower of, young Marx was called neo-Marx. Neo-Marx. Right? And Gramsci was one of the followers. If you talk about neo-Marxism had two schools, right? Is a structuralism and another is Frankfurt School. बस इतना जानना है क्या? Got the idea? बस इतना जानना है. New Marxism had जो स्ट्रक्चर पे बहुत फोकस देता है. दूसरा नाम है फ्रैंकफर्ट एक सिटी है जर्मनी में, है ना? दिल्ली स्कूल ऑफ इकोनॉमिक्स, राइट? बनारस हिंदू यूनिवर्सिटी उसी तरह ये फ्रैंकफर्ट स्कूल है. They analyze the entire society and social economic system through the law of culture. Culture पे बहुत इन फोकस करते हैं. Right? How role of culture play a very important role in maintaining state. Right? कुछ भी होगा ये कल्चर को ले आएंगे और कल्चरल लेंस से चीजों को देखेंगे. Got the idea? But it doesn't mean they denied the role of economy, the role of social institution, the role of other things. No, political. They also include everything, but largely they give importance to the role of culture. ठीक है? इतना समझ में आ गया अभी तक? अब फिर हम जब पॉलिटिकल थ्योरी पढ़ेंगे तो फिर मैं ये दो स्कूल पढ़ाऊंगा क्या है. ठीक है?
Established by Gramsci.
Frankfurt School was not established by Gramsci. Gramsci was from Italy, and this was Germany. राइट. सो इस स्कूल के 2-4 स्कॉलर है, थियोडोर एडोर्नो है, राइट. आपने अगर नाम सुना होगा, मुझे रिमाइंड करने दो, थियोडोर एडोर्नो है, एडोर्नो. एंड फिर दूसरा है हैबरमास का नाम सुना है. हैबरमास यही थे. और फिर मैं और बता देता हूँ, जार्गन हैबरमास, जार्गन हैबरमास है. फिर और 2-3 है जो हम पढ़ेंगे तो आपको बताऊंगा. ठीक है. It was established by Gramsci. They followed the Gramsci version of Gramsci lens. उन्होंने Gramsci के हिसाब से किया. फाइन. चलिए अब और लिखिए तो. देखिए पैरा चेंज करके लिखिएगा. देखिए Gramsci observed that Marx's prediction about revolution did not take place in the industrialized Western society. Revolution occurred in Russia. Wherein industries is minor and agriculture is major. In Russian Revolution, it was peasantry, small farmers, agricultural laborer who played a very important role to establish a socialist society. Therefore, Gramsci revisited Marx's historical materialism. Since Marx's prediction did not come true, for industrial countries like Germany, Italy, France, UK, Gramsci asked a simple question. That why revolution did not take place as Marx had as per Marx prediction. As per Marx prediction. ठीक है, एक सिंपल सवाल का है कि भाई मार्क्स बाबा तो कह गए थे कि वर्कर्स जो लोग हैं ये लोग ऐसे कर देंगे, राइट, and then we dictatorship of the proletariat, but why it did not happen in the industrialized West, like UK, Germany, Italy? Well, that was his simple question. In the paragraph, right? बंद कर दूं? Change the paradigm, right? Karl Marx and the Russian version of socialism transformed Marx scientific socialism into a dogma. डॉगमा मतलब होता है कुछ ऐसी चीज जिसके खिलाफ आप बोल नहीं सकते, सैंक्रोसैंक्ट बना दिया, you cannot touch, right? So may transform the scientific Marxism into a dogma, sacrosanct, and sacrosanct, and sacrosanct होता है ना, जैसे कि गीता है सैंक्रोसैंक्ट है, कुछ बोलेंगे दिक्कत हो जाएगी, उस टाइप का वो बना दिया, किसको? मार्क्सिज्म. देखिए
conflict of decisions, मतलब there are two and
dogma, dogmatic is conflict, but at the same time very rigid. यहाँ पर rigid का मायने होगा.
When I have two options and I can't choose between the two, then I am in dogma to choose, like conflict of my own.
अच्छा, ये dogma का literal meaning है. Anyway, here is a kind of something orthodox. Something which you cannot deviate. You have to follow, right? The Marxism, right? The Marxism was beyond criticism. The Marxism was beyond criticism. Marxism was beyond criticism. What Gramsci did, he opened up Marx's idea for critical inquiry. Dogma मतलब होता है, a belief, conviction, right? A principle or set of principles laid down by an authority as incontrovertible rule.
So dogma is not synonymous with dilemma.
No, dilemma is something different. Dilemma means you are in confusion, right? It's an ambiguity. It was ambivalence. So dogma is dilemma is something different. ठीक है, हाँ मैं थोड़ा कंफर्म बोलिए उसके बाद आपको, ठीक है चलो। क्या लिखा? Inquiry in the age of economic determinism. In the age of economic determinism. Gramsci made Marxism more acceptable and debatable. Gramsci made Marxism more acceptable and debatable. And that is why his analysis of Marxism, also called as open Marxism, his analysis of Marxism is also called open Marxism. Fine? समझ में आया थोड़ा लिखने से? एक तो होता है कि एक्सप्लेन करना हो तो कि आपने कुछ लिख लिया, लिखने में भी बहुत कुछ समझ में आता है. Right? Now write Gramsci analysis of base and superstructure. Gramsci's analysis of base and superstructure. Gramsci's analysis of base and superstructure. कुछ पूछना है तो पूछिए. बैटरी चेंज करना तो क्या? Changing battery. Give me 2 minutes. Okay. When you are targeting 2023 next year. You are working on GS part or very good.
I do have problem in international relations.
Acha.
Yes, because I have to focus on it more. But in the books, I am not getting to specify the material according to.
नहीं चलता books चलेगा नहीं. यहाँ पर तो books कह भी देता हूँ. वहाँ पर तो बहुत दिक्कत होता है बेटा. थियरी के लिए कुछ किताबें हैं, but we bring several things from several.
That's the further way.
या वही आपके लिए यूजफुल है. ठीक है. थियरी बताऊंगा देखना. अभी आप अपना नोट्स में डालो. थियरी का नोट्स लाना. It would be uncomparable to any book or any जो पढ़ा रहे. Right. बड़े लोग पढ़ा रहे. Right. I'm a small person. I'm nowhere. But you can check. अच्छे से डिटेल में तैयार कीजिए. लिखिए. ठीक, खूब लिखिए. राइट एज मच एज एंड डोंट ट्राई टू रिमेंबर एनीथिंग. अपने आप से एनालाइज करिए. यू गॉट द आइडिया ना? पता एक बार चल गया. नाउ यू ट्राई टू राइट इट. इफ यू फाइंड सम एनालॉजी यू कैन राइट इट. एनालॉजी फ्रॉम योर सोशल ऑब्जर्वेशन. राइट, आप लिख सकते हैं. कोई दिक्कत नहीं है. एंड दैट विल गिव यू एडवांटेज. लेट मी टेल यू. डोंट थिंक कि यूपीएससी विल पनिश. यूपीएससी उसको पनिश करते, रट्टा मार के यूपीएससी बहुत पनिशमेंट देता है. होता क्या है कि मैं बताता हूँ. जो रट्टा मार होते हैं ना, यूपीएससी उसको बहुत पनिश करता है. क्योंकि कोचिंग में सब पढ़े लिखे रहते हैं. एक ही कोचिंग, एक ही नोट्स. राइट, और उसी में से 500 बच्चे लेकिन 400 का एक ही जैसा या 300 का एक ही जैसा है, तो सबको एवरेज नंबर बिठाया जाता है, राइट. सो आई एम डिक्टेटिंग you but you write answer as per your own analysis. You compare, you analog, you put your social observation, if you have some observation from everyday experience, you put it, right. That's called inquisitive mind. Your mind must be questioning. अच्छा ऐसा हो रहा है क्या, right? तो UPSC won't punish you, right? So Ratta mark, of course, Ratta mark will be punished. Let me tell you.
So even books are not reliable. I was doing economics from Marxian, and there was some data, and then I wrote it an answer, and I got 2 out of 15.
अच्छा, 2 out of
15.
अच्छा.
Even books are not that. I have to, check with the ministry.
Yeah, exactly. जब डेटा की बात आए ना, तो either teacher should give you the recent updated data, right, and also source कि कहाँ से है. Like without source, if you speak something, right, that means you are judging yourself. You are judging by yourself. So you when you put data, give the source. ठीक है, तो होता है डेटा. और किताब आपने शायद पुराना यूज कर रहे हो.
That is the dilemma. It is the latest edition.
It was the latest edition.
Yes.
Oh, but then he might not have revised it. होता है एक बार जब चल जाता है तो इंसान थोड़ा लेजी हो जाता है. MSc is very popular in economics. तो एक बार फैमिली हो गए तो फिर उनको पता है कि 500 बच्चे हैं तो उसमें से 50 तो निकलना ही है आराम से, तो वो मेहनत कम करते हैं. So because what is the answer of Gramsci on the question of why revolution did not take place as per Marx? अभी इतनी रामायण सुना दिया, तुम बहुत पूछ रहे हो मुझे कि ये सीता कौन थी जी, ठीक है, और ये पूछ रहे हो और somebody is asking sir कुछ मैं चीजें भूल जाता हूँ. That's human mind. अच्छी बात है भूल जाते हैं, सब कुछ याद रखोगे जी नहीं पाओगे. अब सोचो जितना आप पूरा एक्टिविटी थिंक, if you can remember the entire episode of the last 5 years, your mind will burst, isn't it? The entire data will be exactly at the same point of time, will hit your mind, right? So it's good to forget. भूल जाता हूँ, अच्छी बात है, मैं भी भूलता हूँ, सब लोग भूलते हैं, and it's a human, we are not computer. ठीक है, तो इंसानी फितरत है, ऐसा टेंशन नहीं लेना है. कहाँ गई वो आ रही है. चलो, should we start Gramsci's analysis of base and superstructure? चलिए लिखिए. थोड़ा सा वो पिक्चर बना दीजिए. 2 पिक्चर बनाना है यहाँ पर. एक तो पिक्चर मार्क्स वाला बनाना है, स्ट्रक्चर का. और यहाँ पर सुपरस्ट्रक्चर. ठीक है, इसमें आ जाएगा स्टेट, लॉ, एजुकेशन, रिलीजन, राइट. और बेस क्या है, स्ट्रक्चर क्या है, रिफ्लेक्शन है बेस का, राइट. एक दूसरा बनाना, ये इक्वल मार्क्स ऐसा है. ग्रामसी बाबा क्या करते हैं, इस सुपर स्ट्रक्चर को 2 अब देखो मार्क्स ज्यादा इसका एक्सप्लेन कर रहा है पॉलिटिकल, राइट. और इसको ग्रामसी सुपर स्ट्रक्चर को ज्यादा फोकस करता है. political society and civil society. और यहाँ ऐसा रिफ्लेक्शन नहीं है, इसका इसमें रिफ्लेक्शन है, इसका भी रिफ्लेक्शन। मार्क्स में ये प्राइमरी है, मार्क्स में ये ग्रामसी में ये सेकेंडरी है। मार्क्स में जो क्या प्राइमरी है, इकोनॉमिक स्ट्रक्चर। देखिए ग्रामसी Gramsci's analysis. तो पिक्चर बना दिया, पैरेलल पैरेलल। पॉलिटिकल सोसाइटी में क्या आ जाएगा, पुलिस, मिलिट्री, रिलीजन। सिविल सोसाइटी में आ जाएगा एजुकेशन, फैमिली, religious institutions, press, media. अब लिखना शुरू करिए। देखिए for Marx economic structure is primary. For Marx economic structure is primary. And dominating one, whereas the superstructure is secondary, and subordinated one, समझ में आया क्या लिखवाया? मार्क्स के लिए क्या था, बेस ऑफ, ये जो था ये डोमिनेटिंग था और ये क्या था, डोमिनेटेड था। ये प्राइमरी है, ये सेकेंडरी है। फाइन, लिखिए फॉर मार्क्स मोड ऑफ प्रोडक्शन is real and real determinants of superstructure. Real determinants of superstructure like social, political, economic and administrative institutions. Hence, if we change the mode of production, the superstructure will automatically change. The superstructure will automatically change. Right? Gramsci did not take superstructure. Gramsci did not take superstructure for granted. Gramsci did not take superstructure for granted. He made modification in Marx's interpretation. he makes modification in Marx interpretation. He also changed the theory of revolution. He also changed the theory of revolution. Right? Change the para and write. Gramsci argued the changes in mode of production will not change the superstructure. The changes in mode of production will not change the superstructure. The superstructure consists two parts: political society and civil society. Political society and civil society. Right? So Gramsci gave importance to base, though though Gramsci gave importance to the base, but he said that superstructure is not only reflection of the base. Superstructure is not a reflection of the base only. It is also reflection of something. It is also reflection of something which exists in the superstructure itself. Which exists in the superstructure itself. लिखा क्या लिखा मुझे बताइए तो.
Structure is not a reflection of base only, it is also a reflection of something which exists in superstructure
itself. Marx called it civil society. Marx called it civil society. Oh, sorry, Gramsci, yes. So sorry. Gramsci called it civil society. Right? Change the paradigm, right? Political society consists coercive institution. Coercive. C-O-E-R-C-I-V. Coercive institutions. And maintain domination. It consists police, military, judiciary, prison, police, military, judiciary, prison, etc. It is a structure of coercion. Or force. Right? On the other hand, continue. On the other hand, civil society, the civil society seeks to obtain consent of citizens to maintain a status quo. maintain a status quo. Right? It is closer to the base. It is closer to the base and relatively autonomous. And relatively autonomous. नहीं, हम पूछते हैं आपको कि is it media controlled by the state? You will say no. बोल दो बोलते हाँ सर. That means sometimes media is autonomous, sometimes it's controlled by the state. Right? For example, democracy. Is democracy controlled by the state? You will say no. Sometimes someone will say, sir, entire election is controlled by the state, election commission. Right? So it is a sphere of consent, right? And it is a relatively autonomous, what Karl had already asked. It is a sphere of autonomous. This is a structure of legitimation. This is a structure of legitimation. It means it legitimizes. It means it legitimizes the government action. The government action. And institutions. And institutions. Okay? Hang on for 2 minutes, 1 minute. Okay, hang on for 1 minute. Now you got the idea? 2 layers of superstructure, right? One is political society, another is civil society. Political society is a structured person, huh? And civil society is a structure of legitimation. Right? It legitimizes the state. It produces consent. As example I have given you, जैसे for temple आप गए, बाबा जी को प्रणाम किया, बाबा जी को कुछ फल दिया 1 किलो, बाबा ने कहा कि तुम खुश रहो, क्या करते हो बच्चा, पढ़ते हो, बहुत तेज बनो, IAS बनो, IPS बनो, देश का रक्षा करो, right? In this way वो अपना बात कह दे, right? उसने कोई फोर्स यूज नहीं किया, उसने कुछ नहीं किया, बट आपके दिमाग में एक चीज डाल गया that may convince you, yes, something, state institution क्या है, prison, police, bureaucrat, अच्छी चीज है, right? Okay, got the idea? Now change the para and write. Now change the para and write. राघव कहाँ चला गया अभी? आशीष, where were you? आज तो मैंने देखा आपको बात भी नहीं हुई, हाँ? ऑफलाइन आया करो, जितने लोग आ सकते हो ना आओ. देखिए चिन्ह पहला एंड राइट. और मैं बहुत लोभी इंसान हूं आंसर राइटिंग के मामले में. द मोर यू विल गिव द मोर आई विल डिमांड, राइट? सो प्लीज राइट इट, इट विल बी बेटर फॉर यू. ठीक है? यू विल रियलाइज लेटर ऑन. सारा काम कर लेंगे ना, जितना रिगरसली मैं ट्रेन कराऊंगा ना, उतना रिगरसली आप काम आएगा बहुत में. एंड देन यू रियलाइज कि नहीं सर ने ठीक कराया था. अदरवाइज क्या होगा, आप करे ना करे ठीक है हो जाएगा, पार्ट टाइम तो पास चला ही जाएगा. Isn't it? Time will pass. Time will not stop. Right? I'm teaching Gramsci, I'll teach Hamara, and then I'll start political ideology, and I'll finish political theory, I'll move to the Indian politics. सब पास कर जाएगा. But if you won't write, writing 750 मार्क्स आप लिखते हैं पूरा मेंस में. Remember? 1750 marks you write for मेंस. कितने घंटे लिखते हो? कितने पेपर लिखते हो? 5 ये पेपर, 4 ये पेपर, 2 पेपर 6, एक साथ 21 घंटा ऐसे लिखते हो जिसका इवैल्यूएशन होता है. 20 hours, 21 hours you write in the examination hall from which you are evaluated. Right? The more 6 hours you write for Hindi and 1 for English and 1 language paper. राइट? सो कितना हो गया टोटल? 6 और 21 ये कितना हो गया? 27 आवर्स. 27 hours you write. Think about writing. I'm very serious about your, yeah? ठीक है? So जो दे रहे वो और दे, और जो नहीं शुरू किया, जो देना नहीं शुरू किया वो दे. Fine, write a more, write a lot. Right, and write akkar bakkar bambe ko, whatever you have got it. Right, it's my capacity, how much I convey you, how much I give you idea. It's my, अगर आप बुरा लिखेंगे that would be my failure. नहीं हो सकता है आप अंडरस्टैंडिंग में कुछ मैं यहाँ पे एक्सप्लेन करूँ, आपने कुछ ऐसा लिख दिया. That means you आपने समझा नहीं. ये मुझे कैसे पता चलेगा कि आपने समझा नहीं? आपके राइटिंग से. Right, your writing will tell me कि how much you have got. Fine. चलिए, so writing थोड़ा सा क्या कीजिए, and I'm very लोभी को क्या बोलते हैं अंग्रेजी में? I'm a greedy person in that sense. Right? Write it more. Okay. Just change the paragraph. और उसके बाद if you want anything, just tell me. I promised you the first class, I'll give you whatever you want. बट मेरा प्रॉमिस पूरा कर दीजिए और मुझे बताइए कि सर मुझे ये चाहिए, मैं ना दो तो मुझे बताइए. फाइन, ठीक है. हाँ, बट फॉर सम पर्पस होना चाहिए. राइट, इट्स नॉट शुड बी hollowness. Right, Gramsci paid more attention. Can the paragraph right? Gramsci pays more attention to the civil society part of superstructure. Gramsci pays more attention to the civil society part of the superstructure. Gramsci pays attention to the part of the superstructure, like school, family, church, media, who teaches and inspire individual, full stop. It also teaches citizens how to behave and why to obey. How to behave and why to obey the authority of the state. These institutions earn legitimacy. These institutions earns legitimacy. These institutions earn legitimacy for the ruling class. They enable capitalists. They enabled capitalists to rule the people. They enabled capitalists to rule the people with their consent. ठीक है, आपको कहा जाता है ना कि पुलिस आए तो अच्छे से उससे कोऑपरेट करना, कहा जाता है ना. क्या मतलब है कि आपके ऊपर आपके ही मतलब एग्रीमेंट से, राइट, द कैपिटलिस्ट रूल्स अस with our own consent, because this institution tells us many behavior, why to obey, how to cooperate, right, to the authority of the state. Fine? Okay. The question, who manufactured the consent? Who manufactured the consent? Who manufactured the consent? Right? It is civil society. It is civil society which exercise power over the people with their consent. It is civil society which exercises power over the people with their consent. It is called hegemony. It is called hegemony. Right? Right? So what is hegemony? Hegemony is legitimacy. कि हाँ भाई सही काम कर रहा है, lawful है, plus power or consent. Hegemony. Hegemony. Right? एक चीज पिक्चर में मैंने बनाना भूल गया, सेशन में बता दिया था मैंने आप लोगों को, ये बना दिया है, अब इसके बीच में गैप है, मेरे पास नहीं है गैप, है गैप थोड़ा सा, सारे को हिस्टोरिकल बनाना है, ये सारा क्या कहना नाम सुने, हिस्टोरिकल बताया था ना, if you remember, हिस्टोरिकल ब्लॉक, ठीक है। मार्क्स का सिर्फ देखो, इसका एनालिसिस थोड़ा सा मल्टी लेयर है, थोड़ा सा कॉम्प्लेक्स है। नाउ राइट, फॉर ग्राम्सी हिस्ट्री चेंजेस, for Gramsci history changes with changes in entire historical block. Entire historical block. Right? What is historical block? क्या है हिस्टोरिकल ब्लॉक बताइए। हिस्टोरिकल ब्लॉक क्या है? एमओपी, मोड ऑफ प्रोडक्शन प्लस सिविल, या वेरी गुड, सिविल सोसाइटी प्लस वेरी गुड, अगर समझ पा रहे हैं तो बहुत अच्छी बात है। आई एम वेरी बैड एक्सप्लेनर, आई एम टेलिंग यू। But the idea changes in historical block. Okay, what is it? Unique in Gramsci's analysis? Unique in Gramsci analysis? Did you find anything exciting and new in Gramscian analysis? Yeah. Kathy, did you find anything new in Gramsci's analysis? It
was existing earlier.
Yeah, that was existing earlier. Entire history, हर में ऐसा है। तो उसने लिखा कि स्टेट ऐसा नहीं कि मोड रूल करता है, वो सिविल सोसाइटी से रूल करता है, राइट? the culture plays a very important role. Right? अभी मैं कहानी बता रहा था आपका, Brahmins doesn't use force, but there are so many Brahminical, celebration that we do every year. Right? For example, Rakhi. Right? So Rakhi में क्या होता है? क्या होता है राखी में?
We tie the Rakhi.
Tie the Rakhi? Yeah. Protects us. Does it? Is it really a brother protects the sister? Does they give right? Property right will be the best protection to your sister. But मांगिए तो जरा, property right मुझे चाहिए, देखिए झगड़ा शुरू हो जाता है, isn't it? So when you see different notion of culture, if you see the cultural point of view and analyze the things, you will find that how something is perpetuating. Right? How patriarchy is perpetuating through the practice. And it is not practice क्या रहा है कि सब हाँ practice होना चाहिए. किसी को सुना है? बड़े-बड़े male को भी सुनोगे नहीं. Female should be educated. Female should come out of the house. They should go to the college. Right? Advocate. Right? The mothers advocate for their daughters and their bahus. Do they do? Yes, but in practice, some theoretical tools or through practice that is inherent in culture. For example, कोई brother थोड़ी बोलता है कि आप मुझे मैं property right ये कुछ चर्चा नहीं होता, but inheritance है कि बाप से बेटे को जाता है नहीं practice में. Theory में नहीं, theory में you have woman has property right, isn't it? But that is not actualized. Right? So through culture, something which is perpetuating, like patriarchy and caste also. Fine. So look, what is unique of Gramsci's analysis? Look. According to Gramsci, state is not only a managing committee for the bourgeoisie, as Shobit पहले बोल चुका था, a managing committee for the bourgeoisie, and an instrument to exploit but civil society is also a managing committee, but the civil society is also a managing committee and an instrument of exploitation. तो जो सिविल सोसाइटी है वो भी एक्सप्लॉइटेटिव है, राइट? ये ऐसा नहीं कि स्टेट केवल एक्सप्लॉइटेटिव है, सिविल सोसाइटी भी बहुत एक्सप्लॉइटेटिव है, जो पूरा प्रैक्टिस चलता है, जिससे मैंने राखी का प्रैक्टिस बताया आपको, बहुत एक्सप्लॉइटेटिव सिस्टम है, राइट? कितना भी आप उसको ग्लैमराइज कर ले, दैट्स राइट, बट अगर ये इससे हो रहा है तो ठीक है, राइट टू प्रॉपर्टी इनहेरिट हो रहा है, एंड दैट शुड बी इनहेरिटेड. एनीवे, so thus Gramsci gave idea of integral state. Gramsci gave idea of integral state, which consists political society and civil society. And civil society. Question लिखिए, which is the dominant instrument, which is the prime or dominant instrument for the bourgeoisie, which is the dominant instrument for the bourgeoisie? दोनों में से कौन है? पॉलिटिकल सोसाइटी या सिविल सोसाइटी? ग्राम्सी कहते हैं सिविल सोसाइटी. देखिए आंसर लिखिए. Though the bourgeoisie uses state as an instrument, though bourgeoisie uses the state as an instrument, though the bourgeoisie uses the state as an instrument, but they use civil society as the first line of defense. But they use civil society as the first line of defense. Right? The role of the spiritual and political leaders, the role of spiritual and political leaders, media channels, educators, the role of spiritual and political leaders, media channels, educators and professionals try to control rebellious activities through manufacturing consent. Through manufacturing consent. Right? Control rebellious activities. Rebellious activities through manufacturing consent. Hang on, let me give you an example. मान लीजिए कि प्रोटेस्ट कर रहे हैं और आप बोलेंगे आप पुलिस ने क्या किया, बैरिकेड लगा दिया. आप बोलेंगे नहीं हटाओ बैरिकेड, रिबेलियस एक्टिविटी है. आप सिविल सोसाइटी मीडिया के नहीं, आप मानिए आप पुलिस से कोऑपरेट कीजिए, पुलिस वाला आपका सुनेगा. कहते कि नहीं मीडिया वाला करके आप इतना ज्यादा क्यों, तो वो क्या कर रहा है, वो स्टेट का साथ दे रहा है. कौन? मीडिया वाला. या कोई पॉलिटिकल लीडर आके बोलता है हाँ आप लोग आराम से बात कीजिए, सरकार आपसे बात करेगी. वो लीडर क्या कर रहा है? वो लीडर आपसे अर्न कर रहा है. क्या? कंसेंट अर्न कर रहा है. मैं तुम्हारे को रूल करूंगा तुम्हारे ही मन से. तो योर कंसेंट आई विल डू रूल ओवर यू. गॉट द आइडिया? क्या लिखा? थ्रू द मैन्युफैक्चरिंग कंसेंट. When civil society fails, when civil society fails, bourgeoisie uses political society like police, military and prison. In Western industrial democracy, in Western industrial democratic society. Right? For Gramsci, civil society enjoys lots of freedom. Lots of freedom. Hence, it is a prime institution. It is a prime institution for the capitalist class. It is the prime institution for the capitalist class to rule and exploit the working class.